The Foreign Service of India has, from the time the partition of Palestine was started, it's been opposed to that. It's been there as the major supporter of Palestine. After 2000, when all the wars became Israel-Palestine wars, the Gaza war, what you see today, is essentially an Israel-Palestine war.
See, if you look at it historically, there was no country called Palestine ever. There was no country called Palestine. I mean, prior to the British mandate, there was the Ottoman Empire. And prior to that, you see, the Palestinians are foreign colonialists. They are squatters on the land. They are squatters on the land of Israel. So, there was no such thing as Palestine ever. How the loser's narrative gets so much importance in the Middle East?
The people of Israel and Palestine, both they wanted two-nation theory, that both nations should be recognized. But right now, Israel is the only country in this world which has, which does not define its boundary.
This terrorist attack is from Hamas in the Gaza Strip upon Israel civilians. That is the crux of the matter over here. This is what the Hamas has been building over the past 5, 10, 20 years, and this is what Israel has to fight against. But the Hamas shoots from schools, from civilian neighborhoods, from hospitals. Their bases are located in hospitals. Now, how could it be that Israel can fight against the bases of these terrorists?
Around 300 civilians have been butchered. More particularly, it is the children of the schools who are studying in schools got killed in this operation. What is on Israel's terminology is a collective punishment. What an extremist element is doing, or what Hamas is doing, for that you cannot take the entire Palestinian civilians responsible for what exactly is happening.
People dying in Iraq and Syria is not a crime against humanity. Where are these liberals when it comes to Iraq and Syria? Why are they silent when it comes to Boko Haram? Why are they silent when it comes to people dying in Pakistan or Afghanistan or Iran or Syria? Muslims killing Muslims is okay. Jews killing Muslims, I mean, why do you want to draw the moral equivalence here? Why is 200 people dying such a big issue? I mean, Palestinians celebrate death, Israelis celebrate life. That is the truth.
There are solutions which are very simple actually. The Palestinians have today compromised to the extent possible where they are willing to settle for only 22% of the original land, which was historic Palestine, and that is only West Bank and Gaza. And even on that context, Israel is not willing to settle on the borders of West Bank and Gaza. And what you are actually witnessing out here is the Israeli agenda of ethnic cleansing, which they believe was half done in 1948, when they could drive out half the Palestinian population from historic Palestine.
How many people have been killed? The question is not how many people did Israel manage to save? Because if Israel would not care so much about civilians, there would be much more killings both in Israel and in Gaza. The question is, how many people did you aim to kill today? The answer from Hamas is over 1.5 million Israeli civilians are the targets of the Hamas terrorists.
The problem is that the Hamas are using their own population as human shields. They are hiding their rockets under civilian homes, under Islamic mosques, under hospitals, and so forth. And they are shooting off their rockets from within civilian locations.
India never shies of a debate. India has always been part of the United Nations, and India has always held that the United Nations taking a stand on the issue is the right stand. The problem arises in what Israel projects and the way the Israelis are constantly undermining and absolutely refusing to follow any of the international guidelines. Hamas was officially elected. If it is not getting recognition, it is only because Israel refuses to give it recognition.
Hamas is not a terrorist organization? I would like to point out that every
It is
single
a democratically elected
recognizes
party.
Hamas as a terrorist organization.
Dr. Umen
Is
and
there
Mr.
anyone else
Matthew.
here who thinks that Hamas are not terrorists? Let us not point the finger at Israel for a moment. Let us point the
Why
finger at
not?
Hamas. I don't see
Why
that
are
we
you
have
not
any
pointing
Hamas
fingers at
represented
IDF?
on the
Why
panel.
are you not mentioning the fact that the IDF has issued a notice to 100,000 Palestinians to evacuate the Gaza Strip within a day? Why are you
Sorry,
not
I did not
mentioning it?
understand what you-
Israel should be destroyed. Understand one thing. We, while defending the Palestinian cause, nobody wants that the Israelis should be destroyed.
India has one of the strongest voices in the region. When it comes to United Nations peacekeeping force,
Yes.
India has the largest contingent.
Basically, India's thrust of supporting Israel is that it is against terrorist activities, it is against non-state actors perpetrating violence, and because of also being a very important part of the coalition against terrorism, India is now supporting Israel. Apart from the fact that India and Israel have shared very strong defense and strategic ties.
So it is incumbent upon all peace-loving peoples to clearly learn the issue, to recognize who the supporters of terror are and who the supporters of peace are.
India historically is supporting the peace-loving people, is supporting the just causes against occupations. If there's any change on the government, we are not to be blamed.
Hamas has done is they have invested in terror infrastructure. What Hamas has done is, lavish lifestyles of their leaders is what they have invested in. And coming to the why India should support Israel rather than Palestine, when the 23 Arab states.
No, but they're not saying anything.
No, that is still fine. See, 23 Arab nations have abdicated their responsibility. What is the responsibility of the Arab League? Arab League and all the Arab countries, they have kept mum on this issue.
This neighborhood, with all of these terror organizations, Israel is the beacon of democracy. And I appreciate that India, lovers of democracy, are taking care of this issue and following on the issue of the terror attacks against the Israeli and the Palestinian civilians.